Good morning, Saturday morning with Jen Ryan. We're ready to do the Prop Till You Drop NFL Week 3. Jen, how are you today?
I'm good. Up at it nice and early. I'm just so excited for all the action this week. Last week was a ton of fun. I think a couple of the props that we talked about hit. And then, of course, Sunday night I did some stupid things that had absolutely no chance of hitting that, I call them scratch offs. I hit a couple of those. I think one of the big ones last week that was a long shot was both Drew Brees and Derek Carr to throw for over 250 yards or something, and of course that one hit. But
good.
It was fun.
That's good.
It was a good week.
And not to get off the beaten path, but I know you're a Cowboy fan, and I see that you are alive, that you're physically okay. I'm glad to see that.
I was telling you before, it was torture because the game wasn't televised, so I was listening to a radio broadcast on a delay, checking Twitter, checking the red zone, and I would have given anything to be in the stadium for that one.
Yeah, what a crazy time. You love these times as a fan. Of course, you're being an Atlanta fan, man. I don't know how you take that.
Must have been an awkward plane ride home for the Falcons.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so you want to start with the quarterbacks?
Yeah, oh yeah. Speaking of my Cowboys, so we have both quarterbacks. The highest game of the week this week is the Cowboys and the Seahawks game. The line I saw earlier in the week was 53.5 points, and I just checked now on my local books, and it looks like FanDuel has it at 56.5 points, and Golden Nugget has it at 57. So a lot of money probably came in on the over, which was influencing that line. But I'm looking at the percentage of the money that's been bet on here, 99% on the over. So it's like everyone and their mother who's going to the sports book is like, yeah, this over is going to hit. So we can expect points, right? And we can expect a lot of them. Looking at our projections, we have Russell Wilson for 234 pass yards, Dak Prescott for 259. So we have it, neither of them really going to that 300-point mark. I kick it over to the sports book. They've got Dak at 299.5. So it's like, is he going to throw for 300 yards or not? And then Russ is at 287.5. If we're buying into these Vegas numbers, and if we're buying into, the fact that the Seahawks are laying 5 points, which means they're supposed to win by, about 5 points to cover. It's going to be a lot of throwing, theoretically, a shootout. So I almost wonder if you smash the over here and maybe our projections are just not taking into account just how high scoring that this game might be.
Yeah, I think the projections, we do some of that, but I think they tend to be a little more streamlined of the average for the year. Not necessarily. It takes into the account the high scoring in that game, but not as much as the typical. So it's a conservative estimate is what I'm trying to say. So if you're close to that, I wouldn't take it literally. I would take it a little less than literal.
Yeah, but it's still I still find it important to look at, because when you look at season-long projections for all these quarterbacks, 259, I mean, that's kind of high, for if you're kind of aggregating everything or spreading everything out over the course of a season. Mm-hmm. So I like it. I like both of them to go over. I like the over to go over. For DFS purposes, this is a game people are going to be targeting. I expect that, I'd be curious to check our ownership projections about just how many Dallas Cowboys and Seattle Seahawks are going to be owned in daily this weekend.
Yeah, we've got those numbers, by the way. For the daily players, we have the ownership on the site. So for the subscribers, check that out. If not, subscribe. We got it all. Use Diehards as your discount code and you get 15% off. So return from interrupt. Sorry about that.
Deal and a steal.
I love watching those ownerships. I just sit and look through them and looking for little, diamonds in the rough.
I don't know how the geniuses put ownership percentage together. I don't care to know how, because it's just way beyond my brain capacity. It's just awesome, and I love seeing it. And it's fun to see the projections and then the actual ownership, because it's usually pretty close. But
That's interesting.
but it's another fun like Vegas, sports betting DFS strategy to kind of load up from players on opposing teams that are going to be in high scoring matchups. Which brings me to Green Bay, New Orleans. That's going to be a good one too. Aaron Rodgers is looking like vintage, MVP Aaron Rodgers. I'm a little worried about Devontae Adams. The rumor mill says he's dinged up. But, of course, that's going to open up some things for other players on the team. But what's interesting, my preferred book that I bet on, they've got passing yardage prop for Aaron Rodgers at 249.5. They're not even offering one for Drew Brees. So that tells you something. They'll do that sometimes. Like if the book is kind of hesitant, they won't even give a Drew Brees passing prop right now.
I wonder if it's because of Michael Thomas being out and he didn't really do the greatest last week, and things aren't stable enough.
It's always because of an injury. Always like Zach Moss, or a lot of times I should say. Like Zach Moss is out this weekend. As soon as they said he was out, I ran over, see Devin Singletary props, nothing. they won't give you anything. They won't give you anything. They're smart, though. I mean, these people get paid for a living to kind of sit there and pay attention to news and adjust accordingly.
Let's remember, they want betting to be 50-50, so they take their 10%. And if they feel they can't have a stable, secure, thought that they can get close to that, they're not going to want to lose money on that. So that's their thought process.
I mean, any bookie, legal or illegal, will tell you it's all about the vig.
Definitely.
That's why I love those bets that are at plus 100 even money, because now you're getting a bet with no juice.
So are you saying you're going to go over on Rodgers?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, again, first of all, full disclosure, and me and Bob actually, this comes up on Sirius every now and then. I hate betting unders. I do it if it makes sense, but I just don't enjoy it. I really do not enjoy it at all. I mean, who wants to watch a football game and root against points? You know what I mean? So I avoid it where I can. I do. I avoid it where I can. But I'm loving Rodgers' passing prop, even with the Devontae uncertainty, because, they are it's a 52.5-point line, 92% of the money on the over. Again, that means there's going to be a ton of points. And the Saints are actually favored by 3. So you figure, theoretically, Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing slightly from behind. Either way, when you see a line that small, it's just a shootout. It's just two high-powered offenses, two storied franchises. There's a lot going on there. So I'm really into the over there.
So if Devontae Adams is out, you would still take that over?
I think I would, only because, Aaron Jones might as well be the wide receiver 3 on that team when they put him in the slot. And we see Rodgers, typically he elevates the play of guys like Lazard and Valdez-Scantling. I mean, they're going to next man up. I mean, can you replace Devontae Adams? Absolutely not. But I don't necessarily see the Packers offense slowing down to a point where he couldn't hit over 250 passing yards.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wonder if Aaron Jones. Well, we'll get to running backs later, but that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they're not afraid to throw the ball at that kid, and you have to love that.
What an incredible week too Aaron Jones had.
I know. It's and it's so funny because the whole offseason, drafting best balls and everything, a lot of the chatter was the touchdowns aren't sustainable. It's not a sticky stat. It's not predictive. There's no way that Aaron Jones can sort of repeat that touchdown volume. And through 2 games, I mean, he's finding the end zone, so it's kind of fun to watch. Yeah,
it is, definitely. I like that.
They have both quarterbacks in this game. Now, here's what's interesting. This is what I love, analyzing on the lines. No Michael Thomas for the Saints, right? Uh-huh. But they're still projecting Drew Brees to throw for 2 touchdowns at least. So, even though his stud receiver's not there, we saw what he did with Traquan Smith last week. It's, these veteran quarterbacks, even though Breeze is slowing down and people are sort of noticing the arm strength and everything like that, his experience and his football IQ, he's just getting it done. I mean, Traquan Smith, did the Saints offense really miss a beat without Michael Thomas in terms of the connection with him and Traquan last week? He filled in very seamlessly. Again, not saying it's not like you're replacing a running back. I'm not saying the top wide receiver doesn't matter, but
they found a way. They found a way to get it done. And, of course, Camaro seemed to step it up a bit, and, of course, some of that is pass catching. He's an excellent pass-catching running back who can take up some of the Michael Thomas, what is left behind while he's out.
Yeah,
so you like Breeze. You like Breeze in the over is what you're saying?
I do. I like Breeze's, like I said, I can't get a passing yardage for him right now. Do I like him for over a touchdown? Of course I do. Yeah, when you look at just the projected points in this game, again, it's just one of these prop games, sort of like DFS with the high points that I will certainly be targeting this week.
Fantastic.
And then a couple of running backs, of course. So I'm looking at David Johnson here. I don't feel great about David Johnson, but there's just such a, everyone's dinged up. Will Fuller kept coming in and out of that game last week, which made me super, super nervous. They're not saying that he's hurt, but I saw him taking himself out of that game a lot. And it's nerve-wracking.
Again.
I know, and he's so good. Like, Will Fuller is just so good that it's like he's one of these guys, especially in redraft, like if he's healthy, you have to play him. The thing, you played him last week and you're like, God, why is he coming off the field so much? Like, is he or isn't he, But here's the thing, that the Texans are going to Heinz Field. Tough environment with or without fans. The Steelers are cooking right now, and it looks like, that they're going to be playing from behind. This is an 0-2 team that they're not putting up a ton of points. They've been playing from behind in every game. And we have to sort of expect that a little bit here. They're only dogs by 4 points, but either way, what I'm getting at is with David Johnson, I'm very interested in his rushing and receiving total. So that line is at 75.5.
Ooh,
right?
That's close.
It is, and it's supposed to be. But if we buy into this game script a little bit, he's going to be involved. Other side of the ball, of course. Oh, well, let's just wait till we get to wide receivers. I was going to talk about Deontay Johnson, but let's wait till we get to wide receivers.
Well, that's a tough call, for David Johnson because Pittsburgh, it's their defense is really good, but he's an excellent pass-catching running back.
Yeah, and that front seven's ridiculous, and it's just in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, they bring the house, Watson's mobile, and are we going to see some of those underneath passes to Johnson? That's
so. What is the total for rushing and receiving?
Rushing, receiving combined, David Johnson's 75.5. Wow.
Okay, that's close.
It's super close. These guys are very good at what they do.
Well, Houston is 0-2. They're desperate to win this game. They got to pull out all the stops. So hopefully that will help.
Yeah, they need a win, and I would think that they're going to be leading on Johnson a little bit in the passing game, which is why I do like this prop. Another running back where I sort of have the same philosophy a little bit is Tariq Cohen. They're playing in Atlanta. Despite Atlanta losing, they're putting up an ungodly number of points. And again, playing from behind. And they have him for 18.5 receiving yards. I feel like that's he could get that on one play, 2 plays. But, they're not offering a combined for him. They're offering one for David Johnson. David Montgomery. But his receiving yards at 18.5, I really like. Again, I'm not one to bet an under. So, I would be looking at
we have him projected at 3 catches for 43 yards, if that helps.
See, there you go. And it does help. It does help because it's like when you look at – when I see when I see a pass catching running back with a total of under 20 yards, immediately I'm like, what's going on here? Like, why that line, you know? And then I look at everything else and I'm like, they're playing Atlanta. They're going to be playing from behind. Like, how do they have them at 18 and a half? And then we have them at 40, what'd you say, 43? Yeah, 43.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like a good opportunity, you know, and you're playing Atlanta. I mean, crikey, how many points have they given up? You know, they're just civ right now. Even though they're going to be away, I think that's a great opportunity for going. I like that.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's like it's one of those benchmarks for me. I look at these pass catching backs under 20 yards, and I'm like, just what is going on here? And I just have to look a little further into it. Injury impact: Zach Moss is out, so of course we have to talk about Devin Singletary. I had a hard time finding any line on him yesterday, but the good old Degenerate Jersey books, they're hooking it up today. They've got a reception line for Singletary, 19 and a half. I don't really love that, but with no Zach Moss, you know, it's definitely something you have to consider. And then the over on Singletary's rushing is 62 and a half. I really like that line because volume. It's just a volume play. You know, with Moss off the field, he's going to get, you know, 90% of the backfield touches. The biggest threat to Singletary's rushing production tomorrow is going to be Josh Allen's rushing, right?
Yeah.
But you have to love that. Given the fact that Moss has been declared out, that they're still offering this prop. I mean, we can't guarantee that in 3 hours from now that these lines are still going to be sitting here. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they might adjust. And for anyone who's interested in it, his total combines rushing, receiving, which I love for these running backs who are either bell cows or like a Kareem Hunt, a guy who's going to get a little bit of both. These rushing, receiving props are just my favorite, and his is 81 and a half. So let's say, you know, what do we have Singletary for on the ground and in the air?
We have 63 and 16, which is 79 points, real close to your prop.
Right. So if what we project and what the book has, if he just gets one more run for 5 yards, it hits. I mean, that's how I look at it. It's probably why I still have a day job, but that's how I look at it. I'm like,
well, we've got him ranked right now as the 25th running back. And, you know, if you look at that, that's another thing. Do you think he's going to do better than that? He doesn't have to do much better for his numbers to get over that, to be the over.
Yeah, and again, the DFS, you know, are people going to be rostering Singletary because there is no Zach Moss there? Are they totally fading the Bills' backfield because of Josh Allen's rushing? It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see. And of
Real
course,
quick here, let me look up Singletary's
ownership.
Right now, his ownership is 5.11, which is 5%, which is not huge. Although he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's the 10th best owned running back right now for DFS, which is, even though it's only 5%, that's he's up there. He's up there.
Yeah. So is he going to be like a cash game lock, as everyone says? Probably not. Could Devin Singletary and like Drew Sample, for example, win somebody a tournament this weekend because of all these injuries? Possibly. I mean, the injuries last week were, I don't know. You've been watching football for a while, Emil. Have you seen that many injuries in a week in recent memory, or is it just me?
Yeah, that was a lot of injuries. Injuries.
Yeah.
You know, you were watching Barkley, and he kind of jams his elbow on the ground, and you're like, oh my God, you know. And then he gets up and he goes back in the game. Oh, next play, out for the season with a knee.
You should have heard the people I was around, the Giants fans. These people are so unforgiving. I mean, they had Odell Beckham, one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. He gets hurt. He stinks. He can't stay healthy. All they wanted was Saquon. They get Saquon. But this is 2 seasons in a row. He's hurt. And I'm like, guys, it's football. Like, this is a contact sport. Like, my God, the way they turn on them, unbelievable. Unbelievable, these guys. They sure are. It really is a what have you done for me lately league.
It's something. It was sad.
It was. It's awful because he's, it's so easy to root for him. And I will say the first thing I said to my brother-in-law, who's a big Giants fan, I was like, "So how soon until they sign Devontae Freeman?" He's like, "That guy," and I'm like, "Yeah, probably that guy."
They need somebody.
He was waiting for it. I think we talked a little bit before about that Pitt Texans game, and I think I would love to definitely get into Pitt wide receiver one, Deontay Johnson here. You know, Juju, he didn't practice on Thursday or Friday. That's obviously concerning. One thing that I absolutely love about Juju is he's a real life fantasy football fan, and he made it a point to go on social media and let all of his fantasy peeps know that he is playing this weekend. Not to worry, even though he didn't practice. I'm still worried. I don't like if a guy doesn't register two practices, and really Deontay Johnson, he's kind of, I want to just pull up real quick on Football Diehards his snap share and his targets from last week. I mean, he was all over the field, and Ben really looked at him a lot. Yeah, okay, so in 2 weeks he's got 23 targets. I mean,
is this Deontay Johnson?
Yeah,
that's a lot of targets.
That's a lot of targets, and I still have to use a calculator because I'm a real life accountant. On those 23 targets, he's got 14 receptions. I mean, those are wide receiver one numbers. I don't care where you are on the depth chart. His production is wide receiver one. 32% team target share. You have to love that. So, with that said, we've got this game at home. Pittsburgh, they're not one of these teams where they're going to take the foot off the gas and just, close it out with James Conner in the fourth quarter. I mean, they love putting up the points. And we have him, projections-wise, they have him at 46. But again, we talk about how these are spread out over the season. The book has him at 64.5. I love this line, especially if, for some reason, Juju plays a little bit of decoy. With that target volume he's getting, really like that line.
Another interesting thing, if you're concerned about Juju either being out or being limited, that Claypool, I don't know, what is his over and under?
Oh my God, he's been so much fun, Claypool. He came out of nowhere. Emil, they're scared to give a prop on Claypool. There isn't one. They've got Vance McDonald. They'll give you action on Vance McDonald, but not Claypool.
Interesting.
Not Claypool.
He's a real wild card. I wouldn't be surprised. Let me run over just to reference the percentages and see if Claypool has any. He's only at 1.4% DFS share, so Claypool's still pretty low. However, if we learn more as we get into Sunday morning, you never know. If Juju is concerning, Claypool has got to go up.
Now, for Claypool in a tournament, I think the thought would be you got to hope that Juju not 100% plays, but kind of decoys a little bit, because that's just going to, I mean, my God. And with Claypool, we've seen it. It takes one play for him. I mean, that's all it takes for him.
Who is this guy? He's incredible. I'm stunned at what he's done at such, just the first couple of weeks of his career. His first catch in the NFL, I thought it was out of bounds. I just
oh no,
he catch that? And then, they showed the replay. And again, we forget how good Ben Roethlisberger is. He put that ball, within inches of where it was supposed to be. He's a heck of a quarterback.
He's another one. He was a great injury discount this offseason. It's like these quarterbacks that are over 30, if they get hurt, the crowd think is, oh, he's cooked, he's done, he's washed. And it's like, no, he was just hurt, and now he's healthy, and now he's great. But yeah, Claypool, no prop for him. They do have receiving props for Deontay 5.5, Juju 5.5, James Washington 2.5. If you want to buy into Ebron, they have him at 3.5. So they're giving everything but Claypool on the book, which is interesting. I wish I could talk to a bookmaker or something sometimes. Tell me how you do it.
So you like Deontay Johnson, is what you're saying?
Love him. Wide receiver one. The book hasn't caught up yet, in my opinion, to Deontay's production.
5.5 is his catches is where it's at. So he has to get 6 catches. It's a lot of catches, however. He can do it.
But that's his, it's a 2-week sample, so we have to be careful. But 6 catches is his floor. I mean, he had 6, he had 8.
I think it's a great bet, personally.
I like it. I like it a lot. Like I said, he's kind of become the wide receiver 1. And I hate doing my Cowboys. I don't really like getting too much into them. But it's like I was one of these people. I was not buying into CeeDee Lamb in the offseason. I was like, too many cooks in the wide receiver kitchen out there. Let's see if he returns kicks. Maybe he'll have some value for me. And it's like he's coming off this 100-yard game. I mean, granted, a lot of throwing in that game. But it's, he's making an impact, and he certainly has a role. His yardage prop is 60.5. I actually, if I bet unders, I'd be taking the under on that. I don't see him having another 100-yard game over there in Century Link Field. But, he's getting the targets. His receptions are 4.5. What do we have in that? It's hard with these rookie projections. We have him at 7, all right? And the book has him at 4.5. Like, that's like a discrepancy that definitely catches my eyes.
The thing about him, he's starting to, get in there. He's hurting Gallup. Everybody thought he wouldn't do it, and he's making a dent right now. So that's a lot of catches we got him at. 7 for 98, 12 targets.
Yeah, we know what we're doing at Football Diehards. Go Cowboys!
Go Cowboys!
Oh man!
By the way, just to back up quick, John Laub was in the chat room on YouTube, and he concurs with Deontay Johnson. By the way,
I feel better already. I love that John's already getting after it.
Yes.
Yeah, he's just become the wide receiver 1. The numbers are the top receiver on that team. I hate to keep going back to games we already talked about, but it's just I'm gonna be targeting these games, and we talked a little bit before about Davante Adams. Both Lazard and Valdez-Scantling, you figure they're going to be GPP guys this weekend in tournaments, but there are other ones I'm looking at their props, especially if I think it's a toe again for Adams, which obviously gives me some serious concern. But receptions, they've got Valdez-Scantling 3.5, Lazard 4.5. So if you prefer one of these guys to the other, put your flag on one of them because the book, very smart, no Davante Adams prop because lots of uncertainty there.
Yeah, and we probably we've already assumed that Davante is going to be out. And our forecasts, we probably need to relook at Lazard here today and make sure we don't have him too low on the rankings because we have him at 37. And any of those guys, he's gone up because of Davante, but he could go up even more and easily beat that over and under.
Yeah, it's these injuries have such an impact. I mean, usually it's only a quarterback injury that'll really impact a spread or a line. And then, interestingly enough, the Von Miller injury really impacted the Week 1 Broncos line, and that was the first time I really saw a line really affected by anybody but a quarterback. But with these props, injuries are going to affect everyone. And the latest news I'm seeing is LaFleur said that Adams is probably doubtful for Sunday night. But they're going to see where he's at. And that makes it tricky for fantasy, too. It's the Sunday night game. So if you were going to, you better have somebody in your flex ready to go. But even if Davante's active, do you play him? How do you bench him? I don't have him in my redraft leagues, thank God, because this would be making me crazy.
Well, check Football Diehards injuries that Bob Harris has, and my understanding right now is, we're not thinking Adam is going to play, Davante Adams. But, obviously before you make your lineup Sunday morning, double check Football Diehards and make sure you understand where he's at, because like you said, we're not going to know at 1 o'clock when the games start on Sunday. But you'll have a real good understanding in Football Diehards, and you can probably make a very astute decision at that point, especially with your props too.
And I have to tell you, I finally loaded all of my teams into the Diehards Fantasy GM, and if I owned Adams, which I don't in any of my seasonal leagues, but if I did, I'd be checking waivers in all my leagues to see if Valdez, Scantling, or Lazard is on waivers anywhere. Maybe somebody hasn't picked him up. And if there's somebody I can maybe, who's just burning toast on my bench anyway, and I want to just have him just in case, like if I'm kind of deciding between the two, like I don't think that's a terrible strategy either.
It's a good strategy to try and find somebody that you can flip out on the Sunday afternoon game. That's for sure. I like that.
Got to be flexible in the flex.
Burning toast. Did you just say burning toast on my bench?
I did, burning toast on
Where
my bench.
Where did you hear that? I got to write that one down. I like that one.
Because like anytime a player is useless, I say he's toast. And if he's burning a hole on my bench, he's just burning toast.
I like it. That's a great one.
Thank you. And then there's just one receiver I want to mention, one more I want to mention before we get into tight ends, and it's T.Y. Hilton. He's off to such a rusty start. What an opportunity to sort of get back on track against the Jets, right? It's a real confidence boost to play them. And for what it's worth, I am like such a sucker every now and then for narratives. I buy into them. He was on interviews this week saying that his grandma called him and was like, "What are you doing? I don't recognize this kid. Like, get focused and get back together." And he said, he's like, "That's what I needed." He's like, "That's what I needed to hear." So I'm excited for Ty this week. The line is at its receptions is 4.5. But the Chargers are also favored by 11.5 points, and the Jets have such a terrible time scoring. So the only thing really that I think could hurt Hilton's line would be if this game, like, very, very early gets out of control and there's just, like, very, very little passing. But I want to think that, in the first quarter, we're going to see a lot of targets going to Ty to kind of get his groove going and get him back to where he belongs. I mean, he's supposed to be Keenan Allen with Phil Rivers, right? He's supposed to get 10 targets a game. So let's get back
that sounds
to
like a good option. Definitely a good option. I like that.
And those poor Jets. I mean, I have the philosophical quarterback debate with people all the time about how I truly believe Sam Darnold is a really, really good quarterback, and he's just dying in New York right now. The poor kid. I mean, the coaching staff. There's he's got. I love Frank Gore, but I mean, a 37-year-old running back, no wide receiver one to speak of, and it's like, I hope his good years aren't wasted. He's still young though. He's younger than Joe Burrow, so he's got time.
Yeah, he definitely has time.
And then tight ends, I can't believe people didn't buy into Jordan Reed last week. Against the Jets, Kittle's out again, and Reed is, there's certain offenses where even with you can't replace the talent, but the position is still going to have a role, and that's the 49ers are a great example. I mean, clearly Jordan Reed isn't George Kittle, but he saw, volume in action that George Kittle would see. Dalton Schultz for the Cowboys, the Cowboys tight end is just a valuable position. I mean, Dalton Schultz isn't this top tier tight end, but he had a hell of a game last week because there's just certain offenses, Steelers running backs is a great example. When Connor went down, we saw Benny Snell come right in, and the offense doesn't really miss a beat.
Of course, remember Dallas played Atlanta last week, so.
Oh yeah, I'm not really looking at Schultz this week. Although the Seahawks aren't that good against tight ends, but
well, Reed did great last week. So, do you think he's a? What do they have? They got yardage.
Yeah, they've got everything, and he's got the Giants this week, and the Giants are notoriously not very good against tight ends, but they're also, a sputtering team right now. Let's see what they have for.
Yeah, we have them catching 3 balls for 31 yards on our forecast, and we have them as the 14th rated tight end.
I want to see if they're giving a touchdown scoring prop on him because he put up 2 last week.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, so he's all right. So just to score, he's plus 190. So if you think he's going to score, that's a good bet. If you think he's going to score first, which those are just kind of like fun mess around props. I mean, that's plus 1,100. Like Emil, you throw 10 bucks on that, But let's see what his prop line is. 52.5 yards, which is more than Evan Ingram at 42.5. He's frustrating. I mean, he's healthy, so it's like, what's going on?
I would actually, Jordan Reed this week, I would have to look a little more. I don't have it in front of me what the New York Giants have done so far against tight ends, and we have that on our defensive stats on our site, which I can go look at real quick.
I'm pulling it up right now. I have it open. Let's see what those Giants have been up to against tight ends.
Yeah, my first thought process is to go under on his yardage.
Yeah, and actually, I stand very corrected here. The Giants, I mean, it's only 2 weeks, but the Giants have been they've been pretty good against tight ends to start the season.
Yeah, it just may be that they may prepare for that, and he may not. 2 touchdowns last week was great. He looked great, and he surprised everybody. And this week, maybe they won't be so surprised. They've got a chance to recognize that they're targeting him.
And the Giants haven't given up a tight end touchdown yet this season. So is Jordan Reed going to break that stat this week? Who knows?
Yeah.
But he could. I mean, it's that offense. They just target the tight end in the end zone.
And he's got talent. His biggest problem has been staying healthy and having concussions, and so he's kind of in a good position. He hasn't been used too much this year. He's fresh. He definitely could pop one in there. But that's a tough call. That's a tough one.
That would probably be the only bet. Now that we're talking it out, we're really looking at all the stats. Probably the touchdown to score a touchdown is probably the only bet really that I think where you're going to get your money's worth if it hits.
Yeah, that's definitely a nice ratio.
And then last week, this is our last guy, and it's because you brought him up last week, and I couldn't wait to talk about him this week, and that's Drew Sample.
Oh.
We did this after the Thursday night game last week, and you were like, oh, I forget what I said, and you were like, oh, that's a good point. I wonder what that's going to mean for a guy like Drew Sample next week. And I'm like, oh, I couldn't wait to see it, right? So Drew Sample's coming off a 9-target game. I mean, when CJU, I'm going to say, because everybody pronounces it different.
Yeah.
When CJU went Uzoma.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear him say it. I don't want to be rude, but I mean, I watched that broadcast last week, and Troy and Joe both said it different. So I'm not sure. But see, when CJU went down, I mean, Burrow spreads the ball around. He threw it like 60-something times last week, but he was looking at one guy, and he was looking at him a lot. And it's Sample, and I was talking to a friend of mine who's a big sports bettor. John Proctor yesterday, and I was saying, what's going on with this Drew Sample line? It's only 3.5 points. And he was telling me the books even had CJ's lines wrong. Like they've had for the first 2 weeks, the Bengals tight end just projected for such low production when that's just not the case. So 3.5 sounds pretty good to me. I'm dying to know what you think about that because, you really had me kind of thinking about him yesterday.
Well, he's certainly a good option. They're playing Philadelphia, if I recall. Philadelphia gave up 3 touchdowns to Higbee on our defensive stats on the site. They gave a touchdown up against Washington in Week 1. What do we have? Oh, my gosh. They couldn't have thrown. It says 178 yards. It's a good bet. It's a good bet. Now, who is he? Well, actually, he was a second-round draft pick a year ago. So he's not like he's just, some guy who walked in off of a practice squad. So you got Joe Burrow. You've got the Eagles defense. Sounds like a good bet to me.
So here's a fun one, and this is the last one that I want to ask you about.
Okay.
With Dallas Goedert, putting up a ton of production too, it's obviously hurting Zach Ertz a little bit, right? Would you take a long shot bet, just for fun, a scratch off, for Drew Sample to have more receiving yards than Zach Ertz?
Whoa, let's go see what the Ertz is predicted. Wow, you can actually make a bet like that?
My book has it, yeah. I'm looking at it right now. And that includes overtime if the game does go to overtime.
Whoa, what's the odds?
Plus 140 for Sample, minus 177 for Zach Ertz. So, Sample's the dog here, but I kind of like it because of Goddard.
Well, it would be an interesting bet to throw in there as an added bet. I'd go straight Sample with more money, but that's an interesting idea.
It's a fun one. It caught my eye for sure.
Let's see what Cincinnati's given up. Where do I have too many windows open? Just a sec here. Cincinnati.
They're 19th. Pardon?
I'm looking at it too, Cincy, the tight ends. Yeah, 19th.
That's, I'm not sure if that helps or not, but that's a tempting bet. That's a tempting bet.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, look, that's what I'm looking at for now. Of course, between now and tomorrow, excuse me, I'm sure I'll have some more fun. We talked about this last week. It also depends how I do on UFC tonight. I try to be a responsible gambler, so if I catch a couple of nice UFC hits tonight, I'll have even more fun tomorrow. So I'll definitely, I like to talk about it on Twitter with all the other gamblers out there. So be on the lookout tomorrow. I'll be on there kind of, letting everybody know where I'm setting my money on fire.
Fantastic. Those are some fun ones. Excellent.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you so much. That's going to be fun to see how this follows out and see how we do. But I love those opportunities.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. And, of course, looking forward to doing it again next week.
All right. Thank you. Have a great week.